Say something. It's like a podcast, but it's a vodcast, so you can listen and watch. It's like news talk or sports talk, but it's life talk, so we can walk the road together. On today's show, Karen Wright Marsh, author, speaker, and ministry leader, joins us to chat about age-old truths, trials, and timeless messages that inform today.
My hope always is that they will hear the message that they are, as Nouwen says, the beloved. That their performance, their perfection, their labor, it's nothing compared to the true story of who they are.
Okay.
Which is loved by God.
So
And
beautiful.
we just have to hear it over and over and over.
Yes, we
And,
do.
you know, and we all need it, but they really need it.
Thanks for joining the conversation. Here we go.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Do I get
welcome,
to sing too?
Welcome to Carpool Chats.
We could sing. That might scare everybody off.
Maybe we'll wait to the end.
I do sing in the car with hand motions, and it's really embarrassing to my children.
Surely there's a
But I
great
don't
song
care.
about saints and sinners, right? Wait, isn't there a Billy Joel song about that? Cry
Yes.
at the... No, wait. Something with
The sinners have much more fun.
Yes!
Only the good die young.
There
Only
you
the
go.
good
All right,
die. So there we go.
I'll work up to that.
Yeah, only the good die young. All right, so we are so excited to have in our car the author of this
Do
great.
you want me to hold it up? Since
Yeah,
you're
I think
How about
that's-
since you're driving?
I think that's
Yeah, really.
All right, so welcome to have in the car our friend Karen Wright Marsh, who is in
Karen.
Dallas.
Karen Wright Marsh is the Executive Director and co-founder of Theological Horizons, a university ministry that has advanced theological scholarship at the intersection of faith, thought, and life since 1991. She directs daily programs, writes resources and curriculum, teaches weekly classes, mentors students, and is a highly sought-after speaker. She holds degrees in philosophy and linguistics from Wheaton College and UVA. Karen lives in Charlottesville with her husband, Charles Marsh. Connect with Karen at KarenWrightMarsh.com and at theologicalhorizons.org.
All right, so Karen's new book is right here, and it's called Vintage Saints and Sinners. And it really is, we want you to tell us, first of all, like what compelled you to write the book, because why you did this I think is so cool.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then we'll keep going from there.
So, Vintage Saints and Sinners, I did not grow up with saints in my life so much, an awareness of saints. I'm not Catholic. I grew up Presbyterian, preacher's kid. Our saints were, St. Peter, St. Paul, the biblical ones.
yes.
But I've been directing a nonprofit ministry called Theological Horizons for about 26 years. And I started a group 16...
Okay, tell us a little bit about Theological Horizons.
Love to.
Okay.
So Theological Horizons is a ministry. We work at the intersection of faith, thought, and life in the academy. So we're in a college environment. We're at the University of Virginia, working with scholars and faculty and mostly students, grad students, undergrads. Just creating conversations with them, open, generous conversations about faith.
Okay.
Because a lot's at stake, and it's hard to have really rich, open conversations in that space, especially for Christians, I think, who often feel very defensive.
So, all right, so you've got this going on at through the Bonhoeffer House.
Right.
And okay, so this book came out of a lot of what you do there because it's been so impactful with people in your environment. And so tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
So one of the programs that we have at Theological Horizons is a weekly lunch I call Vintage, and it's not a Bible study.
So is that where vintage came
Yes, that's where
So-
Vintage came from.
I noticed you quoted Jeremiah 6:16, which says, "Stand at the crossroads and look, ask for ancient paths, ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." I assumed that's where the ancient part came from.
That verse is my favorite verse, and that has just
I've never even
come
heard
up.
this verse.
I'd never heard it. A friend of mine gave it to me. I was like, this is amazing, because think about it. You're at a crossroads. All of us are, but students especially.
Yeah, you're right.
You're looking in all these directions, which way you're going to go. You ask for the ancient paths, which are the well-trodden ones.
Yeah.
And then you learn to walk in those, and you find rest. So I'm encouraging students through these stories to look back and find mentors from the past, brothers and sisters from the faith who lived in crazy times. Julian of Norwich lived in Norwich, England in the Middle Ages, and the plague came through 3 times. So, you think the world is scary now, like try England in the plague, or Augustine, who lived in the Roman Empire, who went to the University of Carthage and was a total party animal and degenerate. So you think Rugby Road is rough on a Friday night. So there's just all these stories from all these people from all these centuries and different.
And how did you find them? Because I was going through, and of course, you've got the well-known people, the Mother Teresas or the C.S. Lewises of the world, right? Where pretty much everybody knows who they are and is probably even quickly inspired by them from what they know, what little they might know, which is probably a decent amount.
Yeah.
But then you've got like these totally obscure, names I had never even heard.
What I want to do is bring forward as many Christian witnesses as I can from as many different parts of the world.
Right.
And Mary Pike Lee, you would never have known her because she was born in Korea. And they moved to California when she was a very small child. Her family was a Christian family. They were some of the first early Christians in Korea. And they lived a life of complete poverty, real suffering in California because of all the prejudice and the racial hatred.
You are right.
And people thought they were Japanese, so during World War II. And she tells stories of trying to go to church because they were Presbyterian and being blocked at the door because they were Asian.
Okay, we're at Starbucks. Since you call forth all these ancient people, as you call them, and many of them are definitely historical. I think about we all grew up and our parents tell us how the world's so different today than it used to be, right? And so the world is so different than the time when a lot of these saints actually lived their lives. So how do we bridge that gap between the time that they lived and the actions that they took versus our modern day traditional times and kind of what our world looks like today?
Yeah. Well, I think imagination is the first step, to take the time to hear their words and imagine, kind of try to put yourself in that time. And also, just sometimes you hear the words of these people and you just connect. It's like there is no time difference between
it transcends time.
It just
Which
does.
It seems like you purposely went through each of these people and there was actually something very significant that applied to today. Because it's like exactly what anybody is dealing with today.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealt with throughout time.
Exactly.
It's just the way it looks that's changing. It's not the core. Either the truth never changes, and I think that's very comforting.
Well, and you even
human
wrote
experience. Yeah.
You even wrote how each person inspired you and what you could take away and what you did take away.
Yeah, because I live with these people. They're my brothers and sisters, and because I teach them every Friday, every semester for 16 years over and over with students, and we have conversations, so I see what resonates with them. So we read Martin Luther, of course, with the Reformation anniversary, and he talks a lot about anxiety and melancholy and gives this pastoral advice, right? I mean, he was a wreck. Talk about anxiety.
He was a wreck, and he really struggled with depression.
He did, his whole life.
Right.
But there's one in the reading, in his pastoral writing, he says, we look at others and we think that they are so much happier than we are. And I asked the question, does this connect with you at all? And they said, yes, social media.
Right.
This is, everyone looks perfect, everyone looks happy, and I feel so alone and sad. So he said something to them in that moment that, no, he didn't have social media, but he knew that human experience of looking out on the world, and everyone looks so together, and you just feel the disconnect and the sadness. So, I mean, I think if you just open your mind to these people and these and again, you see the hardships that they went through, then it just makes your own life, it gives us all room to be who we are and kind of experience the Spirit of God in our time and place, and know that God has touched and encountered and reached into all kinds of situations. So
perspective is powerful.
It is.
It really is.
And one thing I was thinking was, as I was going through and looking at some of the people that you profiled, I just thought, okay, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so he's the constant. And so to see how these people used their faith and his presence in their life and depended on that to overcome and persevere through things that we simply do not have to persevere through today.
Right. And that's where it helps.
It does. But it's still, those things are still significant today. They're just different. It's a different, and anyway.
What do you hope to do by sort of exposing, some of these greats? Like, I was fascinated to read that Mother Teresa actually felt like God wasn't even hearing her.
I know.
That sort of blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, after she died, some of her private letters came out. She had been writing. She had a spiritual director, a confessor, and only one or two people like that she confessed to and wrote to. And of course, we see her as this. Mother Teresa. To anyone, Mother Teresa means saint, super saint,
right,
totally.
Beyond good.
Right.
And she had this early experience of hearing Jesus speak to her audibly.
Right.
She talks about that, hearing Jesus say, "Go, be my light, take me to the poor." And so she started this journey of faith as a person who knew Jesus intimately, as a friend who spoke to her. And after her death, these letters came out, and she said the voice had gone silent, and she didn't hear Jesus anymore. And so she lived this life.
And it was for years, wasn't it?
Decades.
Yes, decades. It was really hard. And she struggled with depression.
Yes. It was so sad.
And feeling alone.
Yeah. Well.
And so what do you hope that exposing that does for people?
Well, I think to me, first of all, in the time that those letters came out, Christopher Hitchens, who's a journalist, said, "See, she's a fraud. She's a fake. She doesn't believe."
Do you know who Christopher Hitchens is?
No.
So explain,
he's a very skeptical, outspoken,
skeptic.
anti-religious. He has died since, but well respected by many and has a public voice. So when he accused her of being, writing her off as a hypocrite, others said, well, and this is my feeling is, look, she experienced the modern dilemma, which is loneliness, alienation, a sense of God's silence. She asked to suffer with Christ, and maybe her suffering was the suffering of feeling abandoned, abandoned on the cross. So it's a mystery, but I think I love her, and I want people to see, look, you're going to have dark night of the soul. It's an old tradition in the church, and Christians everywhere have found this to be true. And if you live with fidelity. I mean, she kept her commitments.
Right.
And wow, even better, because she was not only this saintly person, committed person, but she did it in spite of how she felt.
Well, and that's what I took away. Like, really? I mean, I would have never guessed in 100 million years, because you want to talk about somebody who persisted in unfathomable conditions. I mean, I've just seen just the photos of her feet and her shoes, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
And she did it without feeling like she had this daily reassurance from the Lord, which, would be awesome if we all had that. But the truth is, we all go through days or seasons where we don't.
Exactly. So there's a sadness to it to me, that someone, like, why would God kind of leave her like that or, it's, to me, it's a mystery, and it's a hard mystery, but it's also a reminder that, the spiritual life is a complicated thing, and there is a whole level of, you follow what you believe, and you trust, and you walk, and you do the work before you to do. And trust God somehow, and even if you don't trust in that moment, you just keep walking. So I feel like it's, in the end, it is a reassuring thing.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it is. And that it goes back to that authenticity.
Yeah.
That somebody is actually admitting these things that every human struggles with. So.
And again, the perception that, everybody has it together. All these Christians are so joyful and, have no doubts or
that's supposed to be
That's what I love.
Well, and I think too, I think that you feel like, I'm not okay if I don't feel joyful. Something I did was wrong.
Right.
And that's one thing I love about this too is it's 25 stories of 25 people, where it wasn't always the way it was supposed to be, even in the times that they lived in, whatever the achievement bars were and the standards were at their time. And you see people just like going before and struggling with what, here's what I think religion is, here's what faith is, and here's what relationship is.
Yes.
Which is where you end, really, apart from all the do's to the, hey, it really is so much more about the deep relationship than it is about the whatever the performance level has been for this day and age, which it changes. That changes all the time, as you can even see with these saints who would have these significant religious practices that they would go through that are not a part of this day and age at all. And it's like, well, thank goodness, because really?
No, thank you.
I know it would be terrible. And but I'm sure that we have some stronghold that we don't even recognize either, that years from now people will go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they lived with that.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think about Benedict and Scholastica when you talk about structure and discipline, because Benedict and Scholastica, they were twins, and we know, many of us know Saint Benedict, who wrote the Rule of Benedict, and he started Western monasticism. So there's this long tradition of the Benedictine way, and he had a rule, and it's very specific. What you wear to bed. You're not supposed to put a pencil in your robe because you might poke yourself. You go to bed in your robe so you can get up to go to prayer. Just all these, I think, I love the funny ones, but a lot of things about which psalm to read, and how many hours you spend on each task, and there's work, and there's prayer, and there's community. And you read it and you think, oh, it's so boring. Like, how could you stand to be so structured all the time and so controlled by this rule of the monastery? But then I read an article recently, it was in the New York Times, about Amazon, and the whole culture of Amazon, and many corporations, and many of us live this way. There's a culture of work and demand and expectation, and in this company you work however many 70 hours a week, let's say, and you belong to the company. That's what you do. And so we're all following rules. We're all following rhythms. We're all following someone's demands. And even if we're not thinking about it, how much time do we spend working? How much time do we find playing? How much time do we spend with family or in community? If I'm honest, I work way more than I should if I look at it in a holistic, balanced way. So you're like, I don't have balance in my life. Right. So the Benedict, it's almost like he created the environment of balance, and there's freedom in that. And I'm not going to be a Benedictine nun, of course, but I don't know. I just think it's important to really be realistic and think. We say we don't have disciplines and practices, but we really do.
But we absolutely do.
I checked my email before I even was out of bed, before my feet hit the floor today. Yeah. I was already obeying the discipline of, email. Yeah. And that's a scary thing.
But how fascinating. So to let these saints, these vintage saints, inform even that. As you sit with your students, what's kind of the charge that you give them, that you, to bring them into engaging and to be able to let them walk away with, what is your hope that they walk away with?
My hope always is that they will hear the message that they are, as Nouwen says, the beloved, that their performance, their perfection, their labor, it's nothing compared to the true story of who they are. Okay. Which is loved by God. So and we just have to hear it over and over and over.
Yes, we do.
And we all need it, but they really need it, because every voice around them is telling them to study harder and to be prettier and perform more and please more. And
Can I ask one more question? Please, just about how the book is organized? I noticed that there were two parts. There's asking and then walking. And then I noticed, I couldn't help but notice that you concluded it all with resting.
Well, that
so can you kind of walk us through that journey and what that meant?
Sure. So it was taken from that Jeremiah 6:16.
Okay.
Ask where the good way is and walk in it. And there are 25 chapters. There are 25 saints. You can jump in anywhere and read one. They're all sort of individual stories. But I just felt like some of these people were more action-oriented and some were more asking-oriented and sort of thoughtful. So I was trying to put them in those groups. But, you know, I think in the end, you know, you take the ancient way and you find rest for your soul. So that's where I hope that all this is leading, is toward a sense of rest and belovedness and reassurance and energizing peace. You know, not just, and a good nap, but, you know, something really life-giving and rejuvenating. So I picked these 25 people. Like there are a whole lot more out there.
Oh, I bet it was so hard to pick.
It's really hard to pick.
I'm sure.
But every Friday with students, I get to continue exploring more. So, and adding onto my list. And I've got an author website, Karen Wright Marsh, and I'm going to be developing that more.
Yes.
Thanks to some of
I
your
know,
feedback
because I
about.
was talking with Karen. I'm like, I need more. Like, I want more. And I know that for those that pick this up, you're going to want more. And okay, so another thing that she does that I love is that when she brings these kids together, she brings them together and there's food. So there's an element of breaking of bread. And in this day and age, I think it's hard for people. I talked with a friend yesterday who said, I just can't have anybody over to dinner because I'm not a good cook. I don't feel like my house is nice enough. I don't, you know, it's like all these, I don't. And here's the truth. Nobody cares what you serve. They just like to be together. Like, period.
It's
Paper
true.
plates.
Order a pizza.
Well, and the freedom. Everybody's like freed when you order a pizza or when you come dressed like this. You know, I call it missionary dressing because it makes everybody else feel good about themselves. It's that same way. Serve it on paper plates.
true.
People will feel really good that they're not the only ones. And it's simply getting together. And this is such fun material because we love to have dinner parties. And I will say there is that element. We invite people that don't know each other, and it's sort of like, ooh, is there going to be any conversation? Because there's that, it's sort of like whenever you're somewhere and people open the floor for questions and nobody asks a question, it's like, oh, this is bad. And so there's that fear at a dinner party. Like when you have people, oh, will we have anything to talk about? Yes. You know, and it's like, and so there will, you know, the fact that there's questions that can come from it, conversation that can come from it, contemplation on something that's really actually, you walk away not only being fed, like literally with food, you're fed with knowledge, but more than anything, you're fed with relationship.
And you even ask questions. Don't you have conveation questions in
She
here?
does.
It's so cool. It'd be perfect for a dinner party.
I know. So it's really
like
fun.
who's the weirdest saint? You could make it fun.
Yes.
And again, like I love the question, if you could have dinner with any of these saints, you know, who would it be? Who would you choose and what would you eat?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Probably not be
locusts.
Yeah, something really gruel.
Yeah. So funny.
So
Flannery
funny.
O'Connor though probably would have been like fried chicken because she's from Georgia. Something good.
Yeah.
Maybe
For
I think
sure.
I'd pick Flannery, but yeah, there are a lot of good places to start the conversation.
Anyway, so we do hope, our whole charge here is to go and say something encouraging or kind to the person walking along beside you, and we just hope that maybe this might encourage you to, that you're not the only one dealing with whatever age-old issue of humanity. And gosh, it gives you the freedom to love the person next to you, for sure.
Yeah, open your eyes, ask a good question. People want to be asked.
Okay, so tell us that. What are a couple of your favorite questions that you ask?
With students, we'll do a reading, and I'll often say, you know, is there a word or a phrase that really resonates with you, that really speaks to you? And what is it that you're hearing here? What is it in your experience that that connects you to this? And so it gives them a space to tell their own story.
That's beautiful.
That's really cool.
But it's a safe question too. It's not asking for too much, because you can just repeat a phrase or a word that you see in the text and just leave it at that. So,
Man, that's good.
and also another way to ask is, if you don't want to ask directly, say we're reading a passage about anxiety in Martin Luther, and I can say, you know, where have you seen the experience of anxiety in people that you know? Or what have you been taught about worry and concern? What does that mean in your
That is
in
so
your tradition?
powerful.
So if you can kind of start it with what have you been taught or what have you seen, then they don't have to say, how they themselves feel. So it's just a kind of another way in of getting a deeper response to something.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know who I loved?
Yeah. Who?
Fannie Lou.
Oh, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Fannie Lou, a Jesus girl who was like a contrarian against the norm and just, changing the world.
She was awesome. Yeah.
She's neat.
She got up in front of the TV cameras in Washington, D.C. and she had grown up a sharecropper in Mississippi and went to a meeting, and committed her life to working for civil rights for Jesus, and that's what she did.
That is what she did.
She's like the patron saint of our family, probably. We
Really?
love Fannie Lou. We love Fannie Lou Hamer and Bonhoeffer, but yep, she just had a real winsome way, and she would sing. That was her way of accessing that power and creating community.
Yeah.
So she taught all the little white kids how to sing.
I love it though. She was a leader, and I love that she loved the Lord, and at the same time she had a fierceness for what was right. And
she did.
That resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
Fannie Lou, my girl.
Lou.
I didn't even know. Never even heard of her until I read this.
Oh, you can watch her on YouTube, y'all.
No,
yes.
seriously.
Oh,
I saw you recommend that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to do it.
You should, because you just see in her very physical presence the power and the light of Christ in her, and her.
I'm sure I'll dig her.
Her dignity and everything. Great witness.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you for making us aware of her.
And for making time for us today.
Well,
thanks for the coffee. Here's to
cheers.
you. Anytime, I'll drive with you.
All right. Okay.
No matter where.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks again for joining the conversation. We love hanging out with you guys. Want to stay connected? Like or follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Instagram. See you next time on Say Something.